Hello, I'm Darren again. Today's topic comes from a question asking, is there such a thing as a subservient narcissist? Now, the term subservient narcissist does seem quite paradoxical, given that narcissism typically involves a huge sense of entitlement, grandiosity, being highly disagreeable, there's a need for dominance, and lacking empathy. Subservience, on the other hand, implies a willingness to comply, to submit to, or to serve others. So it's an odd term given what we understand about narcissism, which often stems from deep-seated insecurities and a fragile self-esteem. In fact, narcissistic people tend to behave as if others are there for their benefit. They often condition others to become subservient to them. Many behave as if rules do not apply to them, which is one of the reasons why they can be quite difficult to manage in the workplace. However, in the context of psychological behaviour and with personality disorders, it is possible to observe a combination of traits that can appear contradictory. So to answer the question, it's not a type of narcissism such as grandiose or vulnerable narcissism or whatever, but more a behaviour a narcissistic person engages in from time to time and for different reasons. To understand this, the behaviour of narcissistic people can vary depending on a variety of factors, such as where they are on that narcissistic spectrum, what other things may be co-occurring, it could be the situation, the context, as well as other people involved. So in this video, I'll give some different reasons why narcissistic people may appear subservient, compliant, and I'll outline the motivations and give some examples. So if you find this topic to be interesting, please consider subscribing. So the first reason, and probably the main reason, a narcissistic person would be subservient would be as a form of manipulation. For instance, in certain situations, a narcissist might adopt a subservient demeanour to align with social norms or to gain some kind of advantage. For instance, in a workplace, a narcissist might feign subservience to gain favour with superiors or to strategically outmaneuver their colleagues. By appearing helpful, compliant, and overly accommodating, they might try to gain approval from superiors and admiration from their colleagues. Also, being praised for being dutiful by the right people can be a way of gaining their supply. Now, that being said, they might not be that interested in praise from their colleagues or their juniors, only their superiors. It is the superiors that have the power. It's only the superiors that can promote them. The others can't. Now, in some cases, by being super helpful to others, a narcissist might get to avoid doing their own work. They have found something much more important to do. It's not uncommon for some narcissistic people to sometimes go looking for other things to do rather than their actual job. Now, in a social setting, a narcissistic person might adopt a subservient role as a strategic maneuver to achieve whatever their goals are. They might adopt a persona of putting others first, being very caring, dutiful, to build a reputation they desire. And appearing selfless and compliant can sometimes help them move into positions of power and control. If you will, they try to portray themselves as the servant leader. Now, another situation could be when someone decides to leave them, so they suddenly stop being so self-absorbed and disagreeable and maybe start doing everything they'd been asked to do previously. They become very compliant. The aim being to reel that person back into the relationship. But once that person is back in the relationship, well, they tend to go back to being the way they've always been. Next, with altruistic narcissism, well, their supply of admiration and validation is gained from being seen as the kindest, most generous person there is. So they may seem to be kind, attentive, doing whatever they can to help others. However, like with most forms of narcissism, there's often a public and a private face. It's usually only those closest to them who get to see the real them. When their desired audience isn't present, or if their subservience doesn't get them their desired result, well, they just revert back to type. So in these cases, the subservience is not genuine, but rather it's a calculated effort to exploit relationships and situations for personal gain. Next, being subservient can be common with covert narcissism. Now, unlike the grandiose narcissist who is openly brash and attention-seeking, a covert narcissist is more likely to display vulnerability, hypersensitivity, and a facade of humility or servitude. Now, like a grandiose narcissist, covert narcissists still have deep-seated feelings of superiority and entitlement, but the difference is it's all internalized. They have a tendency to believe themselves to be misunderstood, unappreciated, and rejected unfairly. So they tend to express themselves in less obvious ways, such as seeking validation through martyrdom or manipulation. So a covert narcissist might outwardly display a lack of confidence and the need to please others, but it's a way to mitigate their internal fears of inadequacy. The subservience is really just a coping mechanism to protect their vulnerable ego. Now, in some cases, someone might exhibit both narcissistic and codependent tendencies. In this case, a narcissist might derive their self-worth from being needed. And this can create a dynamic where they seem self-sacrificing, but the underlying motivation is to reinforce their self-image and secure constant validation. For instance, this could be the person who's the first to volunteer for something, or the first to volunteer others on their behalf without checking with them first. But it's all about being fed by other people's gratitude, their positive regard. They get their supply through feeling appreciated. Another motivation behind the subservient behavior could be because the narcissist believes it is in their best interest, even if it's just for that moment, that situation, or in that environment. For example, they could become subservient to someone they see being in a more powerful or influential position than they are, or maybe has resources they don't. So they behave in ways that get them close, get them noticed. They might become the best buddy, the dutiful son or daughter, the loyal employee, but it's only for the status, the resources, or perhaps for protection. And lastly, the reason why a narcissistic person might act subserviently towards someone else is because the person they are subservient to is someone they fear. Maybe someone they've been conditioned not to question, not to upset, not to step out of line with. Someone they have to drop everything for. Someone they have to put before themselves. Someone they have to obey. And quite commonly it could be their own narcissistic parent. In their parent's company they still behave like the parent is the center of the universe and their word is the beginning and end of all discussions. Even as adults, they still obey without questions, and they're still trying to avoid the parent's rejection, criticism, displeasure, or unkind humour. When not in the parent's company, they might try to compensate by trying to dominate everyone else. So to summarise, narcissism can be quite complex, and sometimes it looks like some of the characteristics and behaviours don't quite fit the personality construct. Subservience is one of those things that doesn't seem to fit. But remember, it can be a manipulation tactic, a way of gaining supply or position, or a learned response to a more dominant figure. And if you know them well enough and you see it, you generally get a sense that something seems off. They might only behave in a subservient manner with certain people, or perhaps when certain people are around. In some situations, they behave like they would move heaven and earth for anyone. And sometimes they actually would, but behind closed doors they behave like they are the center of the universe and they expect to be treated as such. When there's no audience or nothing in it for them, they go back to being entitled and disagreeable, and they expect the world to comply with their wishes. So I hope you find this topic to be interesting. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.